Welcome to the Getting Through Today podcast. I'm Brita. Come along with me as I share my story of the ups and downs through chronic illness and depression, all while being a mother of 5. I know healing is possible, and through every phase there is beauty, even if we don't always see it at the time. I know what it feels like to just get through one day at a time. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back. I'm so glad you're here today. And if you're tuning in right now, I just want to say, take a breath. Let it out slowly. You made it here, and that matters. Today's episode is one that's been on my heart for a while because if we're being honest, a lot of us are silently suffering. Caring more than we talk about, smiling through the pain, nodding politely while our hearts are breaking. And I want to start this conversation by offering something that I hope feels like a permission slip. You're not complaining. You're human. And it's okay to talk about what's really going on in your life. I feel like we live in a culture that loves to label things, especially women, especially moms, and especially those of us who live with invisible illness or emotional struggles. I feel like we're often told to stay positive, to not be so negative, or that others have it worse. And somewhere along the way, many of us learn that expressing our pain is a burden to others. But here's what I've come to realize. There's a huge difference between venting and showing up as a victim. Between being vulnerable and being dramatic, between processing pain and being negative. And when we don't feel safe to share what we're carrying, that weight doesn't disappear, it just gets heavier. Sometimes it shows up as resentment or chronic tension, or it could show up as an illness. And sometimes it's silence so loud that it drowns out everything else. So today we're going there. We are going to talk about what it means to be heard, to be witnessed in your pain without being fixed, judged, or dismissed, to finally let go of the guilt that comes with needing support. Because I know that so many of you listening are the strong ones, the caregivers, the encouragers, the survivors. You're the ones who say, I'm fine, with tears in your eyes. And I just want to tell you it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to tell the truth about what hurts. In this episode, I'm going to share some personal stories, times when I felt silenced, misunderstood, or guilty for speaking up. I'll talk about what shifted for me when I finally let myself be real, even when it felt messy. And I'll share some tools, some practical ways to ask for support, to reframe that inner dialogue, and to create space to express what's really going on without shame. So if you've ever been told you're too sensitive, if you've ever second-guessed sharing because you didn't want to dump something heavy on someone else, if you've ever sat in your car or alone in your bedroom wondering, why is this so hard to say out loud? Then this episode is for you. You're not complaining, you're not too much, and you are not weak. You are just a human being, and being heard is a part of healing. So let's take one more deep breath together. Go ahead and inhale. And exhale. And let's get into it. I've been going through some really challenging things lately. And honestly, I can't even share the details, not because I don't want to, but because it involves people I love and that I'm currently supporting. I'm holding their pain while protecting their privacy, but it makes it even harder to reach out and get the support I need for myself. Most people have no idea what I'm carrying. And honestly, it makes the weight feel even heavier. I feel emotionally and physically exhausted. Like I have to be the strong one for everyone else while I'm quietly falling apart behind closed doors. And what I've come to realize is that sometimes we can confuse emotional honesty with negativity. Because sometimes when we vent or when someone vents to us, there could be this unspoken belief that talking about the hard stuff is complaining or giving too much power to the pain. I've even caught myself thinking, if I speak this out loud, am I making it worse? Am I manifesting it out? Even when I'm trying to stay positive, it's hard not to feel like sharing the messy parts is somehow wrong. But here's the truth that I've been learning. Talking about the hard things with trusted people is healing. When I allow myself to express the fear, the frustration, the overwhelm, and the anger I feel, something shifts. It's almost like letting the steam out of a pressure valve. After that release, I actually feel more capable of facing what's in front of me, not more negative or worse. I found that what helps most is not advice or solutions. It really is just the people that are listening to me. When those people are there for me, that's when I feel seen, and that's what I need. And I used to feel like crying made me weak. I don't know why, because I cry all the time. I'm an emotional person. If you know me, I can cry during commercials. That's how sensitive I am. I feel like sometimes if I say I'm tired or overwhelmed, that I was being dramatic, but not anymore. Not today. I've just decided that I'm going to allow myself to speak more openly, but I'm also going to be careful with who I share things with, because not everyone is a safe place to land. Even people who love us can say things that can hurt our feelings or minimize what we're feeling. So I've stopped spilling my soul to everyone, which is hard sometimes. I guess it depends on the day and who's asking me. But I've found my safe people, the ones who get the full truth from me, the tears, the real stuff. And for the rest, sometimes I just say I'm okay because I know they can't offer the kind of support I need, and that's okay too. I have some extended family members in my life who I believe have good intentions, but they just haven't shown up for me and my family in the ways I had hoped they would. Me and my family have walked through some incredibly difficult seasons, and during those difficult times, I've felt a deep absence from people who live just minutes away. It's been confusing and painful, especially because I've tried to show up for them when they're in need. And I really get confused with these questions, thinking, do they not like me? Do they not see how much we're struggling? Or are they just not equipped to support someone through deep pain? But what's even harder is that I know they're capable of showing up because I have seen them do it for each other and for their friends. So when I gather the courage to ask for something as simple as a meal, and then one or two of them respond, I'm grateful. Like, really, I'm so grateful, but it often ends there. There's rarely any follow-up, no real checking in, no offers to help in other ways. And for someone like me who already finds it so hard to ask for help, feeling that silence from them really is hard for me. It leaves me wondering if my needs are too much, and I sometimes feel invisible to them. And I know people have different capabilities, but knowing that doesn't make that ache of feeling overlooked go away. And believe me, I don't want to assume the worst about anyone. I really don't. But I also can't deny that this has hurt, and it hurts me over and over again. I feel like there is so much importance and so much power in feeling seen. And I believe all of us need that, especially when we're hurting. And even though I'm walking through some really difficult things right now, I still do my best to acknowledge what my friends are going through too. I'll check in and ask how they're doing and be honest where I'm at. And I let them know that I'm here if you want to talk. And I let them know that I'm here if they want to talk. But I also let them know if there's days where I can't really hold space for them, that I'm dealing with too much, that sometimes I say, hey, I can't be there for you today. Can you just listen to me? And they're there for me. And that's the beautiful thing about our friendship, is that we can do that for each other when we both need it. I'm so grateful for the friendships and family that I have that are built on that mutual respect and understanding. It's not one-sided. We know that sometimes one of us will be in that survival mode and the other might be the one offering support. But we always know that we're in this together. We don't keep score. We just hold that space when we can, and we offer grace when we can't. And it's really this beautiful giving and receiving, and I really wish everyone had friendships like that. And I believe we all need connection. I feel like we need honesty, not that toxic positivity, but it's okay to name your pain. And it's okay to say that you're struggling. But we don't want to sit in that too long either. Sometimes we have to just let the truth live in the room for a moment without anyone rushing to cover it up or make it any better. But yes, we eventually need to pick ourselves up. We have to keep going. But sometimes in those dark moments, we just need to be allowed to sit in the grief, to cry. However, we need to express ourselves and then be met with empathy, not a pep talk. That's what connection looks like. And that's what love sounds like. So here it is. This is your permission slip to feel, to express, to speak your truth without shame. If you're struggling, just know you're not being dramatic. You're not too much. You're just someone that is going through a hard time, and you need to allow yourself to feel all the feelings. And if you don't have a trusted family member or friend to open up to, I would encourage you to write your feelings down. That's what I do a lot. Almost every night before I go to sleep, I journal everything I'm holding inside. All the thoughts, the grief, the fear, the resentment, hope, all of it. And no, it doesn't magically make the pain disappear, but it helps me acknowledge what's real. And it gives me a space to say, okay, this is hard. This is how I feel. And for now, I can just put it down, get some sleep, and keep going tomorrow. And sometimes we just need to say it out loud, even if it's just to ourselves, because holding everything in, that's what really can wear us down. I know not everyone has a support system, and that absolutely breaks my heart. And if that's you, I want you to know you're still not alone. If it helps, send me a note. Sometimes just telling someone what you're walking through can lift a little of that weight off your chest. We need to normalize what it means to be in pain, to feel sadness, overwhelm, frustration, even hopelessness. We've got to stop pretending everything is fine when it's not, because that doesn't heal. Honesty does. And I get it. It's hard when you only have a few people showing up for you, especially when you know others could. Like I said, we have a big family, and still there are moments when the support just isn't there in the way that we need. And it can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you may feel like you're the one who often shows up for others. But I've learned something important. We can look at our family and friends and ask, what do they actually have capacity for? Maybe we don't really know what they're going through. It's about balancing two truths, right? Recognizing our need for support, while also understanding that people have their own lives, limitations, and ways of showing up. So I've had to learn that support doesn't always look like someone dropping everything to rescue me, because we can't expect that from people. Everybody is living their lives and everybody's going through things. But we also need our people that can be there for us. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. There's a big difference between venting to release and dwelling to avoid. I feel like when we vent, we can speak our truth, cry it out, write it down. We're allowing the pressure out of our system. It's a release, a way we can process, almost like clearing a space so that we can begin to heal or take those next steps. But I feel like when we dwell on those things, or when we keep looping in the same thought without giving it room to move, we're not healing, we're just staying stuck. And it can be hard to recognize the difference in the moment, especially when we're exhausted. It might be helpful to ask ourselves, am I expressing this to release it, or am I reliving it to stay in it? And that's a good question. We can help to find our own boundaries within ourselves, so we can be aware that we're ready to shift it instead of having it on repeat. It is so important to feel our emotions. I give myself permission to feel everything when I get bad news about my health, my family, or something completely unexpected. I'll usually take a day, sometimes two, to cry, to be angry, to ask why this is happening. Sometimes I even yell at God. Yeah, I said it. I yell at God sometimes. I ask him if he's listening, if he's paying attention, and why in the world he allows some of these things to happen. Yeah, I know it's not pretty, but it's real. And real is where healing begins. Then after a day or two, I take a big deep breath and I ask myself, okay, what am I going to do now? How am I going to face this? And what tools do I need to pull out of my toolbox today to get through it? I may journal. I breathe. I lean into those healing practices that I've spent years learning and now I'm teaching. One of the simplest tools I go back to again and again is breathing. Not just breathing to survive, but breathing to regulate, to soothe, to reconnect to the part of me that's still strong, calm, and whole. And when I start to focus on my breath, inhale, pause, and then exhale slowly, it reminds my nervous system, you're safe and you can handle this. And I know when I calm my nervous system, I can show up better, not just for myself, but for the people I love. So here's the thing. Feeling broken doesn't make you feel broken. It really just means you're brave enough to feel. It means you're soft enough to care. And that can be called strength. I'm sure we all have moments where we feel the weight of life feels unbearable. I know I do. There are times I've looked around and thought, I can't do this. This is too much. In fact, these last couple of weeks, I have said that. This is too much. I've questioned my strength. I felt shattered once again. But what I've come to believe, it's okay to feel broken. But it is what you do with the brokenness that matters. Do you kick the little pieces away in anger and stay bitter? Do you lie down on top of these shattered pieces and let sadness define you? Or are you going to gather up those pieces? It can be slowly, gently, one at a time, and begin to rebuild. Or maybe you start over completely. Maybe you reshape what was into something new. There's no one way to do it. I often get frustrated because there's no one blueprint for healing. But what I do know is you get to decide how you move forward. And that choice is sacred. So if nothing you have tried is helping, try something new. Not out of desperation, but out of love for yourself. Try breath work, try journaling, try asking for help again. Try therapy, movement, creativity, stillness, a new doctor. Just whatever it is, give it a real shot. This past week, I got some devastating news. I can't share the details because it involves someone very close to me. But I tell you what, it knocked the wind out of me. I cried for 2 days straight. My eyes were swollen. I think they're still swollen. My heart has ached, and I didn't have any answers, just some really, really hard emotions. But I reached out. I called my people. I let them hear my sobs, my anger, my confusion. I didn't hold back. I didn't try to pretend everything was okay. I let myself be in the grief, in the fear, and in the rawness of it all. And you know what happened? Those people, they didn't try to fix it. They didn't try to hurry me through it. They actually cried with me. And they held space for my suffering once again. And they've reminded me, not with their words, but with their presence, that I wasn't alone. Today I am still sad, but I'm processing. I even got to laugh a little today, and it felt good. And not because everything is okay, but because somehow I know I'll get through it. The crying, the breaking down, releasing those big emotions, it didn't mean I was weak. It just meant I was full. And when we're full, like a cup, when we've been holding things in so much for so long, we can spill. Not because we're failing, but because we're human. And I think those releases are a vital part of our healing. It can clear space for light to come back in. So if you've been crying lately, or if you've been carrying more than you thought you could, just know that it may feel like you're falling apart, but you're actually making room and softening enough to let healing happen. Let this be a reminder that there is no shame in feeling deeply. Whether your healing looks like a journal, a scream in your pillow, a prayer, or a walk around the block. It's all important. And your healing gets to be messy and sacred all at once. And if today you feel like you've got nothing left, that's okay. Just take a breath. And that's enough for right now. Ever since I was little, I have loved to journal. And there were some years that I kind of stopped writing because I don't know why. It just felt like everything I was writing was too heavy. But journaling has always been a powerful release for me. It really is a place where I can be fully honest and there's no fear of judgment. It's where I process what I can't always say out loud or what I don't want to say out loud. It's where I give my emotions a place to land. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and you don't know where to start, here are some journal prompts that you can explore. Number 1, what would I say if I wasn't afraid of being labeled as dramatic or whiny? Number 2, why do I feel like a burden when I'm struggling? Where did that belief come from? 3, who would I open up to if I knew I wouldn't be judged or dismissed? 4, who in my life can actually hold space for me, even if it's just 1 or 2 people? And 5, what support can I give others right now without depleting myself? Because here's the truth, healing relationships are built on both giving and receiving, but that doesn't mean that it has to be 50-50 all the time. Sometimes you're the one pouring into others, and sometimes you're the one who needs to be held. Right now, with everything I'm walking through, I've had to be honest with my closest friends. I've said, I love you and I want to show up for you, but right now I don't have much to give. And they have met me with such grace, and they are saying, it's okay, we've got you. They know that right now I can't hold anything else. And I just acknowledge that this is a season of receiving for me. And I know there will be a time again when I have more capacity, when I can show up more fully for them like I always have. But right now, my cup is overflowing, not with joy, but with heavy things. And I have to honor that. So if your cup is full too, full of stress, fear, grief, exhaustion, let yourself receive. Let yourself rest. Let yourself ask. You're not selfish. You're not weak. You're just someone going through hard things right now. I believe we're not meant to carry our grief alone. And even when I know that truth in my heart, it still is hard for me to practice sometimes. It's that fine line of, between being private and strong and then allowing myself to be supported through my pain. But here's what I've learned. We all need someone who won't try to fix us, but will just sit with us in the dark. And I'm really lucky to have those people in my life who do that for me. They have shown up again and again for me. And they listen, they hold space, and they let me be real. And it is such a gift. There's so much peace in being acknowledged and having my pain witnessed with genuine, heartfelt care. And I hope everyone can have their pain witnessed with such incredible people. But unfortunately, support doesn't always come that way. Sometimes we have people that are really unhelpful, things that are said maybe even with good intentions, but can make us feel unseen or dismissed. So I think it's important that we talk about what support is not, because this part matters. I know I've mentioned toxic positivity, and it's not helpful. When someone says at least, or everything happens for a reason, or things could be worse, it doesn't add comfort. It invalidates their pain. And those phrases often come from people who don't know what to say and want to make things better. But by doing that, they kind of skip over your pain in the process. And I'm sure they mean well. I really do feel like most people really mean well. But I've been on the receiving end of those comments, and instead of feeling supported, I felt way worse. It made me feel like I had to hurry up and be okay, or like there wasn't space to feel what I was feeling. Another kind of unsupported behavior is judgment or silence. I remember when I was struggling with my own health, but I went to help a friend who was dealing with severe depression and needed someone to come help her with her kids. I probably wasn't the best person to help because I was struggling as well, but this person didn't have a lot of support. And I remember as I got out of my car outside her apartment, I saw someone from my church, and I smiled and waved at them, and She looked at me and said, "Why are you going to help her?" And I was kind of shocked, but before I could respond, she added, "Oh, yeah, I guess you have a lot to pay forward." I didn't even know what to say. And believe me, that's rare for me. I usually have something to say. But those words stung. She knew I wasn't feeling well and that our church had been helping my family. But instead of offering help herself to either me or this friend I was helping, she made me feel like I had to earn my right to support others or earn my right to get help. And she probably had no idea how much her words hurt, but I still think of those. And she probably had no idea how much her words hurt. And I don't think she meant to be hurtful. Maybe she's never dealt with depression or chronic illness, and maybe she didn't know how to show up, but that interaction has stayed with me. And I think it's important to talk about that we need to be careful with our words because we really don't know what people are going through. I had another painful moment that happened at a social gathering, and I've debated whether or not to share this one. But it was a time where I wasn't even sure if I should go to this social gathering. It was a group of people I hadn't really felt like I was supported, but I was having a good day. So I thought I could show up and be okay. But one woman approached me and asked how I was doing. And it caught me off guard, but in a good way. I honestly was touched that she cared. It was just what I needed. I really just needed to feel seen and cared about. And so I decided I'd be a little vulnerable and tell the truth. And so I said something like, "Oh, I haven't been feeling great, but I just want to get out of the house today." And her face softened a little and she said, "Do you want me to tell you something that will make you feel better?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." I was really open to receiving encouragement in that moment. And I was really glad I had come to the social gathering. I was like, "Oh my goodness, this will be so good." But then she said something, I don't even want to say it out loud because I'm sorry if this triggers some of you, but this is what she tells me. She says, "My friend is delivering her dead baby today, so things could be way worse for you." What? I froze. I'm still not sure what reaction she expected from me, but I was shocked and heartbroken, and honestly, I was just angry. I was already fragile. I was struggling with major depression and chronic illness. And being an empath, when I hear that kind of tragedy, it does not make me feel better. It adds to my pain because I really care about people, and it hurts me when people are going through hard things. So I looked at her and said, "No, that didn't make me feel better." And then I turned to my husband, Jeff, who had overheard it too, which I'm glad because sometimes I feel like, was I making that up? But it was real, and I just asked him to take me home. And I still think about that day. I'm not angry at her anymore. I think maybe she was overwhelmed and she was stressed about her friend, which is valid. But what she said to me was so not helpful. And I know that comparison does not comfort people. Trying to rate pain, trying to say that someone else's pain is worse than someone else's, I feel like it only makes people feel guilty for having emotions. And I think that's the last thing anyone needs when they're already struggling. Okay, so now let's talk about what is helpful. Support really is asking someone how they can show up for you, maybe even saying, "I don't know what to say, but I'm here," or "You don't have to go through this alone." Sometimes support isn't words at all. It really is about presence. It can be the simplest things. I want to ask you, who can you go to in times of need? Who do you want to be that safe space for you? Do you have someone like that? And how can you become that space for someone else? And if right now your answer is no one, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not invisible. You are not a burden. You are not alone. There are people who care, and you can start with me. Send me a message, a voice note, whatever you need. I see you, and I'm here for you. Maybe some of us grew up believing that our pain had to be silent, that asking for help was weakness. Maybe that speaking up was to seek attention and that to need was to be needy. But whatever that narrative is, that needs to change. And look, I'm not blaming anyone. I don't think the people who raised us meant to teach us that. Or maybe it's just our culture, or maybe it's just our perception. It has nothing to do with those people. Because I feel like a lot of times it's how we interpret things. For me, I never wanted to be a burden to anyone. I really didn't want to make things harder for anyone. So I swallowed my feelings. I smiled through the pain, and I stayed quiet a lot because I didn't want to make anyone else worry about me. But with time and with a whole lot of lived experience, I have realized something. Speaking up is not about seeking attention. It's about seeking connection. It's about letting someone see the truth of what we're carrying so we don't have to carry it alone. I think a lot of us hold this deep fear that if we open up too much, we could be seen as dramatic, or if we ask for help again, we could be labeled as clingy or attention-seeking, especially when we're dealing with chronic issues or when just hard things keep coming. But here's the truth. We don't choose most of the circumstances that hit us. Most of the time, we cannot control what's happening in our life. We don't get to decide when grief or illness or trauma or heartbreak show up. But we do get to decide whether we isolate in silence or reach out in honesty. I think we need to talk about the shame that wraps itself around asking for help. And I don't know why for most of my life I've struggled with asking for help. I've always been more comfortable giving support than receiving it. I don't know, maybe it's pride, maybe I'm stubborn, maybe it's fear, or maybe it's just that deeply ingrained caretaker identity. But I'm learning to shift that because here's the thing. If no one is willing to receive, who are we giving to? Connection and service is a two-way street. Healing happens in the give and the receive. Needing support doesn't mean you're falling apart. It just means you're human and that sometimes you just need someone to help hold the load you're carrying. I don't believe we're meant to do this life alone. And the more people I talk to, the more I realize most of us are carrying something. If you dig a little deeper in conversation, if you ask questions with care, you'll find that nearly everyone has experienced extreme pain, loss, or invisible battles. We're more alike than we think. And I think that wanting connection is not selfish. It can be sacred. It really is a part of how we're designed. We're designed to belong, to witness, to support, and be supported. Now, let me be clear. I'm not talking about waiting for someone to come in and rescue us, because I believe we need to take steps to rescue ourselves. But it's more about being witnessed. I think there's something incredibly healing about having someone sit with you in your pain. Not rush you, not fix you, just be with you. I love showing up for my friends with that. Just showing up for them. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes we're silent. Okay, that's rare. I'm not silent very often. But sometimes by the end of the conversation, if we start out having a hard time, we usually find a little laughter at the end of it. And that to me is a sacred connection. I've had plenty of those I can't fake it today moments. And there's this one in particular that I think about now and then. I was at church one day. I was having a really rough week. I was in the midst of chronic illness, depression, and I wasn't sure I had it in me to be at church. But I went anyways. I was trying to get out of the house and see if I could get something out of church. And I remember this girl sat next to me and she was polite. She said, "How are you doing?" Okay, and normally I would have just said, "I'm fine." But that day I couldn't. The tears came before words could leave my mouth. And I told her it had been a hard week. I don't even remember what I said, but I just dumped a lot on her. And she looked really uncomfortable. She was this cute little newly married young girl who probably was not expecting me to fall apart right there next to her. And to be honest, she never sat by me again. And it kind of made me wish that people wouldn't ask how I'm doing unless they actually want to know. But at the same time, I don't blame her. I feel like culturally, we're trained to ask, "How are you?" just to be nice, maybe not as an invitation, but when you're really struggling, that surface level check-in can feel just hurtful. And I would be like, if you don't want to know, don't ask me. So anyways, it was kind of funny. I hope that she found more stable people to sit by at church. Just kidding. but I do feel kind of bad. But I didn't go to church sometimes because I knew emotionally I couldn't answer questions like that. So just be aware of people. And if you ask people how they're doing, be prepared that they may not be okay. So, just watch what you're asking people. Pain does not need justification. I don't feel like you need a disclaimer to feel what you feel. I even wrote a song about this, how pain can feel so isolating. But I believe if we open up more, if we share the hard stuff with each other, we'd really discover that we're not alone at all. And honestly, there's plenty of times I hesitate to share what I'm going through because it feels too heavy. But then when I remember, what if I open up and someone else does too? Or what if my vulnerability gives someone else permission to speak? Isn't that what we're supposed to do for each other? I think so. Right now, I'm in another season of learning how to receive. I'm taking a breathwork certification class. And like I said, these last few weeks have been really tough for me. But you know what surprised me the most is this group of almost strangers that I'm just meeting. These people in this class have shown up for me in ways I didn't expect. They have held space for my emotions, supported me, and seen me. And in some ways, they've done that even more thoughtfully than some of the people closest to me. And not because those people close to me are bad, but it's just because sometimes people just don't know how to hold space for others. They're too wrapped up in their own pain or their schedules or their lives to recognize mine, and that's okay. But these new connections, this little circle of support, it's reminded me that my people are out there. And sometimes we find them in the most unexpected places. And when we do, we hold on tight. And I really feel like this community of people in this class, there's people in there that could be some really strong friendships going forward. So I'm pretty excited about that. But if you are listening right now and you feel like your pain is too big to share, I see you. If you've been afraid of being labeled as too much or attention seeking, let me just remind you, you are not too much. You might just be longing for connection. And I know you'll find your people. So while you're waiting, be someone else's safe space and allow others to be that for you too. I really don't think we're ever meant to heal in isolation. This is the beauty of being broken together. We don't have to wait until we're completely healed to love each other well. We definitely don't have to have all the answers or be in a perfect place to offer support. We honestly just have to show up as we are where we are. Recently, I was talking to one of my clients and she had said, I don't think I can help others until I'm fully healed. And I paused because I honestly had thought that too for a while. But here's what I told her. We can help as far as we can. We show up in the mess, we open our hands and our hearts and we walk together. I really don't think there's anyone out there who is fully healed and checked every box before becoming someone who helps others. I think if we wait for that, we'll never help anyone. We are all still learning, and I learn every time I hold space for someone else. Because sometimes listening to another person's pain gives me clarity on what I still need to work on through my own life. And a lot of times we're just guiding people and asking the right questions too. We're not giving them advice or trying to fix their life. They're figuring it out on their own. We're just helping them see what they need to work on. And healing really thrives in a community. I know it's hard when everyone's struggling. I had found some support groups in the Lyme community, and there were some that were just really hard. Everyone was too depressed to really help each other. But I believe we can still support each other, even when people don't have it all together. We may just have to take turns, and there's times to vent, there's times to listen. And some of the most meaningful moments in my life have come from someone looking at me through their own pain and saying, oh my gosh, I've been there too. And these words, when I've heard I've been there too, they hold a lot of power because you don't feel so isolated in your experience when someone else says, oh my gosh, I felt that way too. You can feel connected, seen, and you don't feel alone anymore. And then I feel like that connection can open the door for sharing ideas of healing tools and just that simple reminder that we're in this together. And I want to encourage you that even if you feel like you have nothing big to offer, it really is those small acts of love that matter more than you know. It can be a text, a voice memo, just something simple, but just being there for someone makes the world of difference. I feel like the world just needs real people, the kind who say, I see you, I'm here, and we're going to get through this together. Think about the way you personally feel supported and just start there. Even if it's not your friend's ideal version of support, the fact that you showed up, that you tried, really is what counts. So maybe this week, reach out to someone who's been on your heart. If someone comes to mind, don't overthink it. Just check in with them. Send a text and see how they're doing. I know this week, someone I haven't talked to in quite a while reached out to me and said, hey, you've been on my mind and I wanted to check in with you. And it was actually someone who told me, hey, good luck on your race today. Because initially I was going to run a half marathon today and then my body couldn't handle it. And so I had to quit training for it. But she remembered that I was supposed to do that today. It was so sweet. So I think if we think of someone, just reach out to them because she had no idea how much that meant to me. It made me feel good and seen. And maybe if you're the one that needs the check-in, let someone know you need support. I know it can be hard to admit that. But I've also seen the beauty that comes from asking. That love that shows up when we finally let others in. And if asking feels like too much, because I know it can sometimes, just try writing a letter to yourself. Maybe sit down and acknowledge what you've been carrying. Be honest, even if it hurts. And then when you've let it all out, write down one thing you're grateful for. Just one. It doesn't have to be something big. Maybe it's a warm bed or your favorite song or the fact that you're still here. Because yes, it is good to vent, but it is also healing to look around and say, not everything is bad. There's still good here too. And as we close today, I invite you to take a deep breath with me. Inhale strength. Exhale shame. Inhale love. Exhale pressure. Let this truth settle deep into your bones. You do not have to be okay to be loved. There is no weakness in your sorrow. There is no shame in your truth. You are not a burden. You are worthy of love even in your darkest moments. You are allowed to be seen and heard. You are allowed to be supported. You are allowed just to be exactly where you are right now. If you're feeling overwhelmed or alone and you don't know who to talk to, you can always send me a message. Sometimes we just need someone to witness our pain and remind us we're not walking this path alone. Please share this episode with someone who might need to hear these words today. You never know who's quietly struggling, who might feel a little less alone because you reached out. And remember this, you are worthy, you are strong, and you are more loved than you know. Until next time, keep getting through one day at a time.